Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Mob Psycho 100, Season 2, Episodes 1 through 3. And oh boy, it's back. One's magnum opus is here to grace us again with its utter phenomenalness. These were 3 fantastic episodes. Unfortunately, they weren't all as equally fantastic. Episode 2, I don't think, was quite as good as what surrounded it. But you know what? It was still so good. So let's jump right on in to the return of one of my favorite series of 2016. Now in 2019. So anyway, we open on a fairly long sequence of Reigen and Mob going out to some farm to exercise a scarecrow. And it's Mob Psycho condensed into its simplest form. You know, great animation throughout. Mob just being unimpressed with everything. Reigen lying his way through life. You know, it's a far cry from the best Mob Psycho's ever done. It lacks the heart of a lot of the great moments of Season 1, like Mob versus Teru, or the climax of the Claw arc. But it's a nice reintroduction into its world. That's kind of my thoughts for a lot of, like, the first half of Episode 1. It's far from, you know, the peaks of the first season, but it's a nice way to smooth us back into the world, reintroduce us to the cast, except for Teru, who is mysteriously missing from all 3 of tonight's episodes. Before we talk about that, the new OP. It's nice. I don't know if I like it more than 99, because 99 is just so good. But it's fun. It's wild visuals. It teases the eventual return of Claw, which I will talk about in more detail later on. I loved Claw in Season 1, but a part of me feels like the way Claw was dealt with at the end of Season 1 makes Claw returning kind of not something I want particularly. But I'll talk more about that later. But you know, it's a good song. It's just a good time. I will say the song is certainly less unique than 99. And I think that's a bit of a point against it. 99 is a really weird song, and it's not something that really comes across in anime very often. But 99.9 definitely is. So I think I prefer 99, but the new song is good. So moving on into episode 1 proper, what I really love about the first episode is how everything is kind of a natural extension of the more, like, small scale events of last season. You know, we have Mezuto is dealing with the after effects of the LOL incident, who, like, I did not think that would come back. You know, the whole Psycho Helmet cult, on how they're trying to find Mob. Kamuro comes to a he has to deal with his own actions from last season of framing Onigawara and the rest of the delinquents, and he announces his resignation. He did not stay resigned because the vice president and Ritsu convinced him to run again to redeem himself. That's what ends up happening. Before that happens, Mezuto convinces Mob to run for student council president, in order for her, is to prove that it's a, mold Mob into becoming the cult leader she thinks that he can be. Mob is way too good a person to be a cult leader, as I'll get to much later. But for Mob, it's a way to get Tsubomi to like him. And, you know, Mob is like the perfect... Mob is as good a teenage boy as you can get. You know, as pure-hearted as he is, he always does the right thing every single time. He still just really wants to date Tsubomi. It's his one goal. It's why he does not care about his powers, because Tsubomi does not like his powers. And you know what? Mob is such a pure heart that I just can't help but love him. And I also just love the way everyone reacts to Mob running for president. You know, Mezuto is so confident her speech will win. Ritsu, you know, shifts his support from Kamuro to Mob, because that's just kind of guy Ritsu is. Tsubomi has this little, like, gasp of recognition that feels like that's kind of what it feels like when your childhood friend who you've not heard from in several years suddenly enters your life in some small way, or re-enters your life in some small way. That felt very real. The Body Improvement Club, who I adore. They're just being the best here. The Body Improvement Club is the best character, the best characters on this show. They're fucking perfect. I love the Body Improvement Club so much. They're so nice. They're such wonderful people, and they're so good. I adore the Body Improvement Club. That's what we're gonna take out of this whole fucking season, is just that I love the Body Improvement Club. They're perfect. They're just, like, so supportive of Mob. I don't know if y'all saw the Reagan OVA, but, like, while he's writing the book, and the Body Improvement Club, like, running around outside just cheering for Mob. I love them so much. They're just such good dudes. I love the Body Improvement Club. And then you have Onigawara, who's, thinks that Mob is now taking his position from shadow leader to full leader. It's just all of these reactions. I got kind of distracted by my love of the Body Improvement Club. But all of these reactions, they're just super, like, in character, really short reminders. They just, like, remind us of who these people are. It's a reminder that it's been 2.5 years since the show was on the air. And a lot of people probably need a reminder for who everyone is. But then we go to Mob's speech. And it's not much of a speech because Mob just comes down with stage fright and can't do anything. My poor son. I love him so much. But yeah, he failed. He got last place. I imagine with only Mizuto, Ritsu, and the Body Improvement Club's votes. Because the Body Improvement Club just loves him. But you know what? Mob wins in the end for a little while. He gets a girlfriend. Or not. Because it turns out that not only did he reject her in the end, she also only asked him out because of a dare. My son deserves better. And I will say, I'm gonna give, I feel like, I'm happy that Mob Psycho does not just turn Emmy into some, snarling villain. She genuinely feels bad about what she's doing to Mob, and that's why she tells Mob the reason for everything. The other girls, on the other hand, I feel like there's a tendency. We'll see this again in episode 3 with the college kids. A lot of Mob's villains, not of Mob's villains, of one's villains as an author, they're just super like a caricature of like evilness. They're like just kind of dicks. And they don't really have any redeeming qualities. And Emmy does, in her defense. Emmy is a lot like Mob in a lot of ways. They're both kind of, very... They're both... For one thing, they're both hiding a really secret part of themselves. Mob with his psychic powers, and Emmy with her novel. But, like... They're also just kind of kids, They don't know. They're kind of... They want to make people happy, and the way Emmy does it is to hurt Mob in the end. The Mob never lets it show. But I'm glad Emmy is not just a caricature. But Mob is just such a good person. Okay, I can't even get over how good a boy Mob is. Like, he has no reason to like Emmy. He doesn't understand what's going on in Emmy's head. He doesn't understand that she's like the peer pressure and everything. All he knows is that Emmy led him on for like a week, acting like she was into him, and like asking him out on a dare, which is just a cruel thing to do. I know that's like a thing that like elementary school and middle schoolers do. It's just a dick move. If there are any middle schoolers or elementary schoolers, especially elementary schoolers, watching this video, or middle schoolers, for one thing, don't watch my videos. I curse too much. Seriously, I am not a role model. Do not watch my videos. You will start cursing like a fucking sailor. Also, don't ask people out on a dare. What the fuck? That's just gonna like crush their fucking self-esteem. You're gonna be a dick later on, okay? Don't do it. But anyway, even with that, my ADD meds were off like 6 hours ago, by the way, so I am just rambling. Even with that, he still went out of his way to stand up for her when Emmy's friends turned on her. And once they tore up the book, he uses Esper powers, which we know he's super self-conscious about, thanks to what Tsubomi said when they were like 5. to like fix the book. He's just such a good boy. Mob is such a good boy, and I love him so much. Mob is like the perfect child. I just want to hug him. Mob needs a fucking hug. I'm fucking like tearing up over like just how good a boy Mob is. I fucking love my son. And the episode ends with a really interesting shot that kind of frames Tsubomi in a way we've never really seen her. She's like watching over Mob and Emmy, and like remarks on how smooth Mob's Esper powers are. I don't know what to make of that. I don't think Tsubomi has a thing for Mob. I don't quite know. I don't know. Tsubomi's never really been a character before. You know, she was like the figure of Mob's attraction. But like she didn't really interact with anyone besides like her vegetable head friends. So I don't know. I imagine with a shot like that, Tsubomi will play some kind of role, and a part of me really hopes that I'll talk about this later on at the very end of the video. But I do want this season to stay a lot more small scale. And so I hope that Mob's feelings for Tsubomi, and eventually as we see his feelings on his own powers, are kind of the focus of this season, just because I'll talk about this later, but Claw, the way Claw ended in the end of season 1 with like Reigen just kind of dropping them down, revealing them for like the man children they always were, kind of makes going back to Claw seem kind of either redundant or like actively opposing the end of the first season, and I love the end of the first season, and I don't want that to happen. So I figure Claw is going to come back in some way, and I trust One enough to not just utterly destroy it. But I'd rather we stay small scale. I'd rather Teru come back. I don't want the small scale to mean we ditch Teru, because I love Teru. Teru's cool. But I want to see the rest of the cast engaging in more small scale storylines that deal directly more with Mob's emotional states and the other characters' emotional states than the kind of world domination plots that dominated the end of last season. Anyway, that's getting ahead of myself. Moving on to episode 2. The plot of episode 2 is Mob, and there's not a whole lot to talk about with that. It's actually like not that much of an episode to talk about in a weird way. But, so it opens with, Reigen is doing kind of bad in business at the moment, so he and Mob go to another city with a bunch of urban legends, called Cuticle City. Unfortunately, there is 0 references to comedy masterpiece Cuticle Detective Inaba. But that's my complaint. But on the way, Reigen says that, like, the increase in urban legends will make things like make it easier than like scam people. It's not quite what he says. It's pretty close to what he says. And he just certainly seems a lot more open about the shadiness of his job now than he was last season. And I'll get with that later on. How there's a couple scenes in episode 3 that make me think that Mob is starting to suspect that Reigen is a fake. I don't know how I feel about that coming out. I figure it has to before the show ends. Because I know the manga's over. I don't know if the season's gonna cover to the end of the manga. I don't know. But anyway, that's getting ahead of myself. Reigen he just seems more open about how shady he is now. But then we meet a new character named Shinra Banra Bamaru, I think. I did not put his name in the notes for some reason. But I really like the idea of like having another psychic consultant for Reigen to play off of. As much as I love his banter with Mob, they have a great dynamic there. But putting Reigen into other dynamics is always a lot of fun. Like his infiltration of Claw last season. Also, seeing how he compares to other psychics, especially in how low his prices are. You know, we see that when he charges the woman 20,000 yen for, Shinra was going to charge him 200,000 yen for. It adds a lot to his character, and helps even out the contradiction between, like, the wicked grifter who is scamming people and paying Mob, 300 yen an hour, and the kind-hearted mentor who is teaching Mob how to be a good person. Those two things have always even through the first season, kind of, like, butted heads with each other, and I feel like seeing that Reagan services are actually like really cheap is a good way to kind of have those come together in a more smooth way, you know? Um Also, I'm glad Reagan loves dogs. You know, he gets so mad that the human faced dog is just some kids like drawing on a dog that he just like takes it on himself to to give the dog a bath. Reagan gets a lot of crap for scamming people and for lying and for being a con artist, but like you know what? He's a good dude. He is a good dude. He's not as good as Mob because Mob is an angel. But he's a good dude. So now we need to talk about the actual plot of the episode, and that is the urban legends. And while the first two are fairly standard, less supernatural than they seem stories, that kind of like the Seven Mysteries level of Twilight Town and Kingdom Hearts 2, which I think is a bit more of a common thing in Japan, but I'm not quite familiar with all that. But you know, even if you know Red Raincoat is far creepier than any like normal explanation. He's fucking running around flashing children. Like, what the fuck? Thankfully, he gets his just desserts and just gets his ass whooped over and over again by pretty much everybody, as he deserves. The woman in the forest, or the dragger, we eventually learn her name is, she genuinely feels like something like out of a horror movie. As she like drags Shinra down into the bottom of the lake, who is saved by Dimple, who Reagan had following Shinra. And that fight is typical Mob Psycho, great animation. You got well animated fights, a cool camera tricks all over. The problem is that it's just Mob Psycho is so good, it's so phenomenal that like there's nothing really to say about that fight. They could not have been said all through the first season. Mob Psycho just had such a high bar for itself that like even what in any other series would be a phenomenal fight is just slightly under the bar, you know? But that's because Mob Psycho is just so fucking good. I do like Mob. So in the end, they find out that the Dragger gets powers from people like residual fear of the story of the Dragger, and because Mob has never heard the story, Mob is able to easily wipe out the Dragger. Also because he's Mob. Mob just kind of does that shit. But yeah, episode two is kind of, I don't want to say it's flat because that's not true. It's funny. It's Mob being Mob. Mob Psycho being Mob Psycho. I mean, but I feel like it's lacking the kind of, you know, deep, like heart that made season one so good. You know, season one was very, very kind. And this episode isn't especially unkind. It's just not especially kind either. It's just kind of it's some fun stories, but you know, nothing too special. I do love Dash Granny. Dash Granny's hilarious. Anyway, let's move. It's already 2:15 in the morning here, so let's move on to our final episode of the night. My laptop is being weird. Hello. Moving on. Sorry, super tired. ADD is a fun disease. Okay. Anyway, where was I? Episode 3. Yes. So, a few things to get to before we start talking about this episode, and probably this review's highlights. First off, the Stalker Ghost sequence. Is Mob starting to figure out that Reagan's lying to him? Because there's a bit where he's like, I forget where he brings this up. It's before they go to the woman's apartment, though. I know that much. Where he asks, like, is it all right? Oh, it's the curse scene. He starts asking very particular questions about, like, is it right to let the cursed guy live under the false impression that he is cursing the other guy? That sounds, and his focus on what's wrong is that he's leaving the one guy under a false impression kind of implies that, like, it's a focus on, it reminds me of Reagan who's leading Mob on about Reagan's own psychic powers. I think Mob is starting very slowly to figure him out. It might take a long time until he does so, but I think Mob is slowly starting to figure out that Reagan is a liar. Then we have the Stalker Ghost scene. The story itself is alright. I don't quite know what exactly is up with the Stalker's powers. He refers to it as an out-of-body experience, his stalking. But what I really want to talk about there, the animation is great. The shots of like once the scene where they see the ghost, so to speak, and like the animation as it like zooms in on Mob and like the camera like shifts. I forget exactly what it is because I'm super tired right now, but it's super fucking good. Okay, it's great. Um, and it raises the episode's central theme, and a theme I hope will be the important throughout the season is Mob. It flows the idea that Mob, who is like seen the spirit world since he was a kid, doesn't really see that much of a difference between humans and spirits. That it starts to question the idea. It has Mob starting to question the idea, I should say, of exercising spirits, like as a automatic thing. Before we get to that, the whole ghost family scene that will be the highlight of the episode, I do need to talk about the whole sequence where Mob gets mugged by two guys. The sequence does absolutely nothing for the plot at all. It's just everyone loves Mob so much. Like even Dimple loves Mob so much that he like makes the mugger like strip, and then Ritsu comes up and psychics him for a little while, and then the entire Body Improvement Club comes, and I love them so much. They don't even like fight the guy. They just like crowd around him and walk very slowly in on him. They're so good. I love them. I love the Body Improvement Club so fucking much. They are perfect. I love them. All right. Anyway, the Ghost Family sequence. It is terrific. It is as much as have loved those first two episodes, with the exception of maybe the Emmy scene, the climax of the Emmy scene, I should say, it's kind of lacked the heart, the thematic resonance that made season 1 so good. Ghost Family brings it back in spades. It presents a super compelling moral question to Mob on whether or not he should exorcise the spirits. You know, even if it does kind of lean into, like I mentioned with Emmy's clique, the college kids are pretty much caricature villains by that point. It also ties nicely into Mob's concerns about the woman's reaction to the stalker being human, and that distinction is something I hope that the series goes more in depth to this season. Also shows genuine growth for Dimple of all people, as he like tries to prove that the ghost father is not going to be an evil spirit by reminding him of all this power and telling him to go kill the college kids. The fact that he doesn't do that, it shows like the fact that Dimple goes out of his way to like prove that is some huge growth for Dimple. And it's just genuinely compelling. You know, it's Mob Psycho gets a lot of well-deserved love for just how phenomenal the art and animation is, and it certainly deserves all of that. But sequences like this remind us that it is not the animation that makes Mob Psycho the beast that it is. It is the plot, it is the characters, it is the heart. The heart. It's what puts Mob Psycho above One Punch Man, in my opinion. One Punch Man has some great fucking art animation going for it. With the exception of the Moomin Rider Deep Sea King fight, it does not have one iota of the heart of Mob Psycho. And that's why I love Mob Psycho so much. Yeah. What else is there to talk about? I've been going on for 25 minutes. If you've been listening to my rambling for 25 minutes, I apologize. I have a little bit more to go to, though. Nope. My last note here is about the world domination stuff I mentioned earlier in the video. It was good last season, but the way it ended with Reigen just kind of revealing them to be overgrown children who thought the world owed them makes the idea of returning to Claw seem either redundant or in conflict with last season. And personally, I want to see a lot more focus on Mob's worries about his own powers, about his more social life, because I love the cast in Mob Psycho, and I'd rather they not be, I'd rather not have all my favorite side characters get kind of like tossed aside for Claw henchmen who never really develop into anything whatsoever. But yeah, that's really how the episode ends. I've loved the ending. The visuals are super cute. I could watch cute paper cutouts of this cast all day, and the song is also super cute. It's great. But yeah, in conclusion, I have missed this show. It's so good. You know, great characters, fun plots, meaningful themes, and like a huge stress on the importance of just like simple kindness. What's not to love about Mob Psycho? I have nothing else to say about it because I've been talking for 25 minutes and because it's just so good. But yeah, next time, rich people and a cool outfit for Mob. I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the episodes and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass and I'll see you in the future. Bye!